Welcome back to Historical Side-Eye. Today we're going to do a feature on red brick in LA and some of the different styles that we see. I never really thought of LA as a city with red brick buildings, but as I look around more, as with all the things we study, I see evidence more and more everywhere. This is just a huge red brick building. This one has columns and the teeth. Here we can see something that we would see on a lot of buildings. And then the top of it here is all brick. So we're going to start to see that a lot of buildings that you might not think are red brick are most likely red brick underneath. Like this church right here, very familiar setup from the front. If all this brick was painted the same color as the arches, you wouldn't even think twice that it would be red brick underneath. And here, if you just look at the front of this building, no evidence at all of it being red brick. But when you look on the back, it has the old brick behind it that you would never notice if you were just passing by. Same with this magnificent hotel here with Antiquitech, and right here on the side you can just see all the brick. Same here, we see this familiar entrance many places, and here it's all brick. Again, if it was painted the same color, would never even suspect that it would be brick. This one is behind a church. It's all brick on the ground, and then it has this brick structure on the side here. So I would just think that the rest of this structure here is all brick as well, and it's just been painted, plastered, or concreted over. Here's a parking structure, arches, bricks. And here's another building with arch and teeth, all brick. And again, here we can see the front of the building. Doesn't seem to be made out of brick. And then we take a look at the side. It's completely old. And it's got the arches. Bricked up windows. On this side as well. And here's a structure in the middle of a cemetery, all brick. If it was a different color, I would not think that it was brick. Same with this fence in front of a house. It's got the familiar arch and the same shape that we see on the top of a lot of buildings. Here's a close-up of a brick building that had the windows filled in. If they paint over all of it, it would just smooth over. This one, the brick's in the middle. Something covered up in the center there. And here's another brick arch. And here's one that's been filled in. This arch has the keystone. And this massive building. Got the arches and the keystones and huge blocks on the bottom. The door doesn't even seem to be at street level. Here's an example of, it's got bricks in the front and a different brick on the side. So you might see a different color brick in the front, and it's still a red brick building that you can see by looking at the side. There's a lot of different styles of brick in LA. Try to focus just on the red, but there's even different colors. And again, bricks, arches, another huge building. And again, the front entrance is just, looks like it's made out of a different material. If that continued along the building, it would look completely different. We also have a lot of churches that are made out of red brick. And towers. $1924. They had to put a date on there. Here's a slight variation of what we saw in the last picture. And here's another brick building with arches. A tall building, all brick. Here's a passageway in between some buildings with a brick pathway, and both sides brick as far as you can see. More arches and columns and shields. We'll be getting into shields in a future episode. Different styles. This looks a little bit more like that deco style. And here is a fraternity or sorority house with really old brick in there. Columns and keystones. And again, if all that red was painted white, it would look like any of these other neoclassical style buildings that we see. Here's a little structure out there in the park with this Moorish arch. And here you can see the red brick. Painted over on the bottom. Don't know why they didn't on the top. This is a foundation of a church that will be seen in a future episode. All brick on the bottom. Here's the arch made out of brick that you can see. Everything else covered up. And then a massive brick church with these Moorish arches and a covered up portal. And here's a great example. Was downtown checking out some buildings and found this magnificent building with all the characteristics of everything we're looking for. And it happened to be under renovation, and I stuck my phone in between the bars here and saw that the floor is all red brick. And the walls are red brick. So even when we see glorious buildings like these, there is a possibility that there's red brick underneath. And then was driving by and saw this church under renovation. And I didn't notice it at the time, but going back and going through the photos, if you look right through this quadrifoil here, you can see the brick on the inside. So even a church like this has brick on the inside. So just everywhere we look, there's red brick buildings. And from this angle you can kind of see how the red brick was only on the very top, maybe in the attic portion, and it was covered up all the way almost to the top. So I think there was probably a ceiling there. You probably couldn't see that red brick. So until now, when everything's being taken apart. And here I passed by this building that was in all sorts of disrepair. And here you can see the red brick coming through. So all over, the red brick is just peeking out. And you can see how it was been covered up and what it looks like. Here again, a little better shot. Just all the red brick that was underneath this whole time. Right here you can see the side. And here's another close-up. Just clearly showing what it would look like if it wasn't covered up. So at some point this building was completely brick and brick only, and some other party came by and covered it up. Here's the side. So yeah, I think I've shown a lot of examples here of brick everywhere you look in LA. It's probably the same in your town. The more that you look, the more you'll find more red brick buildings. And it just shows that this country is just covered with red brick buildings, whether we know it or not. Thanks for checking out another episode of Historical Side Eye. We'll be back again real soon with a new episode.
There's got to be more to this thing we call time, cause the future can be seen in terms of straight lines. So combine the sight of instincts and wisdom's eyes, stroke the lows and highs of this ride we call life.